several of you know me, but I see several new faces. So on behalf of our company, I'd like to welcome you to the conference. It's great to see how this group has grown over the last 5 years. I walked in this morning and I saw 5th. Even I wasn't aware that we are doing this for the 5th time. And it's good to see that it has actually sustained over 5 years, and it wouldn't have happened without your support. So as a member of the 9.9 media team, I'm really grateful and thankful for all of you, and I hope we keep getting your support. I'm supposed to talk a little bit about leadership. When the teams in my company can't find a filler speaker to take on an audience of this kind after lunch out in the sun where you'd rather be, I would rather be, they usually inflict me upon you. So I like to start by apologizing for inflicting myself upon you at a time when I and you would rather be outside enjoying the beautiful Delhi weather. I'm told this weekend the fog is going to start coming in, so it's not going to remain as nice as it is. But it's a good time to be here and in the surroundings. How many of you have heard me talk about my leadership ideas before? Some of you have, right? Bala? Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry, this is going to be a bit repetitive, and I would not be offended if you choose to go out and do some calls or emails. What I have to say is not earth-shattering in the first place, but having to hear me a second or a third time, as it might be the case from some of the friends who are here, I'm completely okay if you choose not to stay. I was noticing from the morning session that we started out by calling you superheroes, or at least suggesting that you are superheroes, even if some of you don't believe that yet. I also noticed that in the survey, a number of issues came out that had to do with really being good managers or good leaders. It had very little to do actually with your immediate security role. And I think at some level, this is a challenge all of us are facing. Whatever title you give to yourself, whether it is a CIO, CSO, CMO, CHRO, which has become a new title, CFO, I think somewhere or the other, all of us know that we are good enough to be where we are, right? We wouldn't have reached there if we weren't good enough. You wouldn't have a title with a C in front of you, or even if you don't have one right now, even if it's a senior vice president or a general manager or a vice president or whatever the title is, you wouldn't have reached where you are unless you were seen to be a leader in some ways. But equally, all of us are anxious about where we want to go. I think Burgess raised the question of, what do you do after being a CISO? Do you remain a CISO all your life? Do you start thinking about running a business, becoming a CEO, becoming a CIO, starting something on your own? And so all of us are obsessed with this, very explicitly or somewhere deep inside obsessed with how do we get better, either in terms of the roles we are playing or the kind of people we are. And I think what I'm about to share with you is really born of myself having to go through a similar experience and continuing to go through that experience, because it's actually never ending, right? Where you want to go is an existential question that have concerned philosophers, teachers, gurus for eons. So it's not an easy question to answer, but at least in the context of business, and all of us are working in a business, what I want to share with you is just some personal insights on how should you think about it, right? How should you think about being a better leader? How should you think about how do you go to the next level in your career? And what does it mean for you as a person? And I'm going to tell you this from the point of view of my own experience. This is not based on some big literature survey or a PhD thesis on leadership that I've done. These are just some personal ideas that I have based on being in a similar place that some of you may be, or would have been or will be. And this is not the universal truth by any means. This is not some fundamental gyan that I'm giving you. It is just a recounting of some insights I have. Some of it may be helpful, some of it you may already know, and some of it may mean nothing. Perhaps in the future it means something. So let me start by asking some of you, when you think about being a leader, what comes to mind first? What does it take to be a leader? And now this is where you have to pay for the lunch. So you can't just sort of use the glucose levels to not think. What comes to mind? I mean, come on, this is not a trick question. What do you think of first? Yes? Courage. Okay?
Somebody who can motivate others to achieve their full potential.
Somebody who can motivate others. A vision. Sorry? Doing things differently. Good listener. Knows how to manage the environment. Motivator. Team member. Huh? Innovator.
Take ownership.
Decision maker. Risk appetite. Proactive. Take ownership and responsibility. Perseverance. Original. Integrity. How many different things do you think we have so far on the list? Roughly 30? 20?
Can I quote one hoarding that I saw?
Hoarding, yes, go ahead.
On the way to the Hyderabad airport, there's a hoarding which says, leadership is an art of persuasion, not domination.
Persuasion, being persuasive and not dominating. Value creator. How many of you think you are dominating, by the way? Taking that quote. How many of you genuinely think you are dominating? One person? Okay. Two people? Good. Two. Three people? Good. Are you therefore not leaders? Are these three guys, because they are dominating, not leaders?
It's a different style of leadership, I would say.
Now you're being defensive, right? Justify kar diya. A different style. Hai. No, I didn't mean, actually I think that's a good point. I'll come back to that. We've already gone through a list of at least 30 attributes. How many of you have these 30 attributes? How many of you have 10 of these attributes? 10? 10? Good. Some people have 10. Good. Very good. Now suppose I had those 30 attributes. Suppose I have those 30 attributes. How do I know I have those attributes?
Your audience has to say that, not you.
So the first thing about leadership is that, we can't declare ourselves leaders. Others have to first see us as leaders, right? That's the simple, maybe obvious point, but I think sometimes people don't realize that. They think they are so good because you have 10 or 15 or 20 or 25 or 30 of those attributes that you've become a leader now. So because you've now become a leader, it's a little bit like when I wear these band galas, people say, "Aap to election ke liye tayari kar rahe ho." In fact, today somebody told me that. So, it's not like by wearing this I become a politician or a neta or a leader, right? So the attributes are the same thing, right? You can have those 30 attributes, but until somebody else thinks of you as a leader, you can keep counting the attributes you have, you don't really get there. So now I'd like to ask you the question. So if you don't have these 30 attributes, if you had to have one attribute, and that is obviously has to be judged by people other than you, right? Based on what you said. What is that attribute? Sorry? Lead by example. Okay. Reduce. Yeah, so that's the same point, right? Walk the talk, lead by example. Man management. Good human being. A good human being is a leader? Yeah? You think so? Just the one thing?
No. Self-belief.
Self-belief? All of us have some self-belief. Does that make us a leader? Okay, I want you to stop for a minute because you are adding to the attributes, right? Some of you have studied mathematics. Yeah? Remember the theorems in class? Necessary condition. Remember necessary condition? Okay. So what is a necessary condition? One condition that is absolutely necessary. Without that, you would not be counted as a leader. You can have all the other attributes, but without that, sorry? Integrity. But is that a sufficient condition? Vision. It is a necessary condition. Okay. Okay, let me ask the question. Yes, ma'am. Following. Yes, that's actually a good point. We'll come to that.
The will
But
to
you know, a lot of people have good following, right? A lot of people throw parties, they take you out for a beer on Friday evenings, they bring you out to spas like this, right? Have you encountered people like that who are very popular? Somebody from your class in college, have they achieved anything? Sorry, Burgess.
The will to actually become a leader in the first place. Itself.
The will to actually become a leader in the first place, good. That's a good point. Yeah.
Leader gives the direction, boss gives the orders.
Leaders gives the direction, the boss gives the order. Okay. That's another attribute again that I would contend you are talking about. Let me ask you this. Who's a better leader, Dhoni or Sachin Tendulkar? Unanimous? Unanimous? Anybody want to fight for Sachin? Come on, the poor guy is getting old. No? Why? His record of achievements is nothing compared to Sachin, right? Why are you suddenly unanimously saying that this guy is a better leader? Why?
Because it's about getting things done and rather doing them.
Aha! Somebody started talking about things that CEOs like to hear or people like me like to hear. Getting things done. Nobody said anything about that so far. We were talking about visionary, you know, being a motivator, walking the talk, being nice to people, nice guy, integrity. Why are all of us doing what we do? People respect you and see you as a leader when you get stuff done. That's the most basic and unfashionable, unsexy, unexciting definition of leadership that I have found. People will come to you, and particularly, you know, are there any HR people here? So, you know, we've now outsourced leadership to the HR guys in the organization. You know, they do your leadership assessment, competency assessment. After your assessment is done, they will say, you know, there are 5 leadership attributes that you don't have. You are too dominating. You are not being persuasive enough. So I'm going to send you to this training program at the Indian School of Business where this professor of organizational behavior is going to train you for 10 days. We're going to do 360 feedback on you. And then suddenly you will become more persuasive and not dominating. Right? Familiar story? Right? But the fact is, it isn't really about fixing those attributes. The first and foremost attribute to get fixed is, are you able to get things done? Now, why is there why does this sound mundane? I mean, it's really generic to everything we do, right? So what is so exciting about it? I think I'd like to suggest that it's not just about getting things done, but it's getting things done in a way that is above and beyond what generally people are doing in your organization. And I call it breakthrough performance. So those of you who have heard me before will remember that term and may have forgotten, which is good because I'm refreshing your memory. But ultimately it is, you know, all of us are supposed to get stuff done. Stuff that is handed to you, stuff that is given to you. But really, it's when you achieve breakthroughs, when you take an Indian team that has traditionally lost series, has not had a winning record, and it's actually when you make us win again and again and again that Dhoni suddenly becomes a leader. Now, does he have all the attributes which we talked about? I don't know. Who cares? Suddenly, we all think of him as a leader. I don't know if he has integrity or not. Oh, side mein, if he's making money from all the Brill Cream ads, I don't know. Maybe he cares more about money than cricket. But somewhere, at the end of the day, we don't care about those attributes. We basically say, because this guy wins matches for India, and this is a breakthrough, because previously India did not have this kind of a winning record, this guy is a better leader than a guy who has great individual achievements like Sachin. I'll give you another that we all need to become like Dhoni or Gandhi. Just think about Gandhi. Why is he such a big leader? Because he was a brahmachari, because he was nice to people, because he dressed in khadi, because he gave up so much. What was he? Why do we revere him so much? Sorry? That's again his attribute. But is that why we revere him? He would have been selfless, right? He was selfless when he was in South Africa. He delivered independence. Now, let me ask you, sorry?
A very large audience to follow motivation.
But a lot of people did that before him, right? Suppose India had not become independent at the time that it did. Suppose it became independent in 1955, after Gandhi had died in 1949. Would he today be as famous as he is? That's only the point I'm making. Gandhi doesn't change. He's still the same man. He's got the same attributes. Now you may say this is harsh because the guy is a good guy. He's a good leader, and you are saying just because the timing of the independence was 10 years later, we would think of him differently. That's harsh. But you know what? That's how the real world is. Yes, sir.
But I think we're talking about a single milestone event. Supposing, and like you said, it's perfectly possible that independence got delivered in 51 or 55 or 50 or something like that, and did not get delivered before he died. Okay, but if you say that any vision or any objective has milestones, and there's something kicked the bucket before that, you can't say he wasn't a leader, right?
I'm saying that is exactly the case. Unfortunately, the world is a very harsh place. And at least I'm now coming back to the world of business. And I'm saying that I've worked in 5 organizations in my life. I used to work as an academic at the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Toronto. I used to work as a management consultant at McKinsey. I used to work as the managing director of Anand Bazar Patrika, which was a media company, and I now have my own media company that I run called 9.9 Media. Now, where I will be a leader and where I will be not is not guaranteed at all, is the point I'm making. I may be still the same person, I may have still the same attributes, but it is about specific milestones, as you call them, and specific opportunities that decide whether I will be a leader or not in the eyes of people. So you could argue that as a CEO at Anand Bazar Patrika, because it was short-lived, I did not show magic results, people don't see me as a leader. If you go and talk to people at Anand Bazar Patrika, they will tell you, yeah, Pramath was a good guy, nice guy, he did great things, he cleaned the place up, but thik hi tha. He's no great earth-shake CEO, he was okay. Right? If you ask investors in India who have invested in my company or the general entrepreneurial community about 9.9 Media, they will say, yeah, 9.9 Media is a good company, it's doing a decent job, but is Pramath a great entrepreneur? Is he in the league of some of the great leaders who are entrepreneurs? Probably not yet, because I haven't proven myself. If 9.9 becomes successful, that will become a leadership opportunity for me. But if anything, my leadership is recognized from the fact that I helped build the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad and I was the first dean there. That was never my plan. You will notice that I didn't even mention it in my career. The point I'm trying to make is that you may focus a lot on your attributes, and unfortunately all of leadership talks, leadership books, leadership training tend to be about, if you become like this, you will be a leader. If you have these attributes, you will be a leader. If you become like Dhoni, you will be a leader. That becomes very difficult, I have found personally, for me to do anything about, because that list is too long. I can't be a Dhoni, I can't be a Gandhi, I can't be a Dhirubhai Ambani, right? But what I can do is, in my own way and in my own style, I can deliver better than other people can. And if I can consistently try to do that, there is a chance that I will deliver something that people will see me as a leader. There is a chance, and I'll come back to that. Okay? So the first point I want to leave you with is that as you think about your own leadership, okay, if I was to do this truly as a workshop and ask you to reflect on your career so far, most of you have worked for what, about 20 years, roughly, 25 years. Think about what would you count as the one singular big achievement. You could have done that as a management trainee, you could have done that as an engineering trainee, you could have done that as a software project manager, or you could be doing that today as a CSO, right? And the question is that moment large enough? Wasn't that the time that you really got recognized by your organization as somebody who was ahead of the pack, who was truly seen as a leader, both by the organization and people who worked for you, right? And I think our leadership journeys are really about finding the next big thing to do, the next big mountain to cross, the next big breakthrough performance to achieve. Okay? Now, how do you assure that you have these types of performance? Suppose I made one country, Gandhi made one country independent, Dhoni made so many wins for India. I was successful at building ISB, right? You may have done a fantastic project where you delivered a implementation on time, on cost, it grew the business 20%, 30%. What do you do next? How do you think about the next opportunity, which will be an opportunity for breakthrough performance? If it is about delivering breakthrough performance, how do you ensure that you do that? You understand the question? If it is, how do you make sure that each time you go out there, you have breakthrough performance?
Introspection and by identifying the opportunity to do so.
Okay. But specifically, what would you do? Is there a way to say, if this opportunity has these elements, in your particular case, that I will be able to show my leadership? To sustain so actually I haven't talked about it, but when I say breakthrough performance, I mean sustained breakthrough performance. Yes.
The breakthrough performance, what we mean is something that is significantly different from
Yes, so let me define that, since it has to be a step change. Okay? There's a real change that happens. Second, it's sustainable. And third, in some senses, it is positive. Now, what does positive or negative mean? People often ask me the question, therefore, is Hitler delivered leadership? I think he falls down on that, because in the general view of others, it was a negative performance. But for the Nazis at that time, it was a positive performance, and they saw him as a leader. So you can't deny that either, that he was a leader to them. We may think he was not a great leader because what he did was negative. So I think in the context of organizations as well, I think it has to be sustainable, it has to be a step change, and it has to be positive. But how do I identify these two? And says, Parag, we are opening a new office in, Bangladesh now. It's under our region. You've been working on the IT, cyber security side. Why don't you go and head that business? What do you do? How do you know whether it is going to deliver breakthrough for you? Because, at the end of the day, it could be not, right? Is there and I get confronted with this all the time, which is why I'm asking, My own, in the interest of time, I'll move it along. My own belief is that you can't. That you actually cannot predict. You have to take the risk. It always ends up being a calculated risk. A lot of you will agonize about decisions. People call me up all the time. People like you who come to our conferences, listen to me talk, they'll call me up and saying, so-and-so is offering me this job. Should I make the change now? Should I do this? Should I not do this? There is no right answer. There isn't. There never will be. So then what do? Do you lead a fatalistic life? So what do? Do you say कि चलो जो होगा होगा देखेंगे? क्योंकि हमारे कंट्रोल में तो है ही नहीं. You've just proved that it has to be breakthrough if I have to be seen as a leader, and you've also proved that I don't have it in my control. So what will happen will happen. Is that what I'm saying? The converse is also true. A lot of the time, people will sit around and say, if I'm going to be CSO all my life, what am I going to do next? If I'm going to be CIO all my life, what am I going to do next? Most of the time, people have the problem that they don't have choices. It's not that all of us have lots of choices and we have to call Pramath, Sinha or Burgess and ask their opinion and then decide. Most of us actually don't have choices because we are sitting doing what we are asked to do. Right? I think the more important aspect of this discussion that I want you to take away is that you actually have to search for opportunities constantly. And I think in the Indian psyche, for a lot of us, this is not part of our psyche. We think we've become a leader, we have a C in front of our name, and Pramath Sinha said that, deliver breakthrough performance. Of course I will deliver breakthrough performance each time. But breakthrough performance won't come to you. And you don't even know when it comes, because you don't know if it will be a breakthrough performance or not. So if you really want to be a better leader, you almost have to ask for that new opportunity to demonstrate breakthrough performance. And that's a very different mindset. So we can talk about leadership as long as we want, and we can compare ourselves to the world's best leaders, and we can talk about the 30 attributes, and HR can come and do their assessments on you. But until you get yourself in the mode of asking and confronting opportunities and demanding these opportunities for yourself, the first step in leadership you would not have taken. And that, to me personally, was also a very big shift in mindset. I came from a very academic background. So I have a PhD in engineering. I worked in the fancy field of robotics for many years. And there, all you had to do was sit in your lab, do great research, write papers in a certain set of journals. If you wrote those papers, if you went to conferences like this, made presentations, you progressed. In fact, in the American tenure system, which is the system by which professors are evaluated, if you write a certain number of papers, you become a professor. And then you actually get the job for life, because that. So I never had this attitude of looking for opportunities. So when I got into McKinsey and also into the corporate world, I was quite happy to sit and, do what I did what I did well. I thought I did a great job. But when I started to get confronted with these questions of leadership, I realized that the best leaders were the people who were proactively always searching for opportunities. Now, there are others who will always come and ask you for opportunities because they are people who are high maintenance. I'm not talking about that kind of search. I'm sure you have people like that. They say, "Nahi, mujhe ye chahiye." They're always unhappy. They want a bigger job, a bigger salary, a bigger title, a bigger office, a bigger computer, another device to bring and configure, right? They think it's their birthright. I'm not talking about that kind of proactive search for opportunity, right? You know the kind of people I'm talking about. You also have people who think too highly of themselves. They think they are already Dhoni or Gandhi, right? So it is their birthright that we should give them, right? I'm also not talking about that kind of leadership. I'm talking about the reflective or introspective kind where you say, yeah, I am ready to do more things, and if there's an opportunity for you, I would like to be considered for that opportunity to go and lead the operation in Bangladesh. And this is not if you look at story after story of people who've done this in the corporate world, Santrup Mishra at the Aditya Birla Group, the Indus Towers CEO is Shanta Raju at Indus Towers. They've come to our conferences and talked about this. The opportunities to go beyond what they did came their way because they asked for it. Shanta Raju was a CFO. The Bangladesh example is his example. In his case, they were struggling with the Bangladesh business. I think he was at ICI or one of these industrial companies. They were struggling with the Bangladesh business. He was the CFO. He was always left having to solve the problems. One day he just went to the CEO and said, listen, I'll just run this business for you. I will not, you will not see any disruption in the current responsibility I'll have. I'll take additional responsibility, run this for you. And the next thing it was, he started running that business. He made it successful. People started calling him. Today he's the CEO of the largest tower company in the country. Santrup Mishra, similarly, an HR professional. Today he leads the carbon black business of Aditya Birla Group, and he's the director HR for the group. Anybody here from Aditya Birla Group? Yeah. So I think there are many stories, and what I'm telling you is not a pipe dream. I'm telling you this because it actually happens. Proactively searching for opportunities that may or may not give you breakthrough performance, but you need the chance to try these out so that you become seen as a leader. Okay, so now you've delivered great performance. Does that make you a leader? Is that a sufficient condition? Think of people you worked with. Why? Think of the people you worked with in your career. Think of the person who you think was the best leader that you worked under. Okay? Do this as a mental exercise. Do they meet the criteria of breakthrough performance? Were they people who got stuff really done? If not, think of another person, because then you are not thinking of the right person. But for a minute, think of the person as the person who got stuff done and who you respect most. What was the other attribute that they had? What was the attribute that they had that will make you go to war with them if they called you up tomorrow? Or if they were starting a new company and they said, I want you to join me, you will go join them. Think of that kind of person from your career, and what was it about them that we haven't talked about?
They are very objective in their assessment and humane in their approach.
Okay, what did that mean for you? Gave confidence in you? Gave you confidence? Gave you confidence. Any other thoughts?
Career growth.
Personal, your career growth? They helped with your career growth.
Allowed you to have a shared objective.
Allowed you to have a shared objective?
Courage of conviction.
I'm sorry, I can't see you.
Courage of conviction.
Their conviction, your courage. Their courage of conviction. That's why you admire them. Okay? They were dependable? You can depend on them. For what? For what? But most importantly, for what?
Their belief in you.
Their
Belief in you.
belief in you. You could depend on them that they would back you. If you screwed up, they would back you because they believed in you. This is the second part of leadership that becomes very important, which is if you are going to be a good leader, then you have to have people who will follow you. And I conversely believe that if you are going to be a good leader, then you are somebody who's following other people. You can't just become a good leader by being a good leader from the day you were born. Somewhere along the way, you have been following somebody. And that person can change in different parts of your career. But your followership is as important, or having your followership is as important as you being a follower to somebody else. I think you mentioned, you called it following or some similar idea, right? But it's absolutely important, and this has become very important in the corporate context again today. So I don't want this, what I'm saying, to sort of be seen as some esoteric concept that I'm introducing. I'm talking about business. Today, in your teams, our whole expectation in the corporate world has changed. The expectation is that we will help other people succeed in their career progression. You can't just be that firebrand guy who slash, burn, cut, shout, scream, be tough on people, be harsh on women, and get away with it. In fact, you do even this much of that and you are out, right? So unfortunately the world has changed, or fortunately the world has changed. It's become a different place. You are evaluated on your soft skills, you are evaluated on whether you are inspirational or not, are you being nice to people, are you being polite to people, are you being flexible, all of the things that were never really associated with the business world. They have now become associated with the business world, unfortunately or fortunately for us. So the question is, not just delivering performance is important, it is also important. Now people often end up calling it being nice or humble or being, being somebody who motivates others and so on. You call it what you will, but really, what really gets people to follow you, when they know that they can depend on you for their success. So often people used to tell me that, followership is important, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about, so what is followership? Why do I follow somebody? The reason I selflessly support me when I really need that support. Now the question becomes, are you doing that for your people? The first thing you have to examine in your being a leader is, how many people are you really committed to their success? Their success over your own success. The biggest problem becomes when we start feeling threatened by the other people's success. We talk about it a lot, and we say how so-and-so is like that, they really are threatened and insecure by their own people. We often hear people saying, they recruit people who are not as good as them, right? Because they are insecure, right? The question is, forget other people. Do you recruit people who will be tomorrow better than you? Are you able to inspire people to be better than you, to bring out the best in them? in fact you are not in competition with these people, then you have great followership for life. They will be beholden to you for life, and that gives you huge leadership leverage. But the more important question to ask is, as CSOs or CIOs today, are you following somebody? Is there somebody in your life who inspires you? I think it's extremely important as we get senior in life to have a mentor, have somebody we look up to. Because you are going to get increasingly alone as you go through life. And even to ask the question whether some opportunity is good or not, you don't know who to turn to, you don't know who to trust. That's the time you need somebody who you know is going to give you selfless, sound advice, because they are most concerned about your growth and development rather than what they may be getting out of you. I find that increasingly in society and in business and in the roles that we perform, we are actually getting more and more isolated from this kind of interaction. And you know what? It is also tough to find good role models. It's not easy. You have to find somebody who you actually really respect or look up to. You can't just do it with anybody just because they are in a particular role. How am I doing for time, Rachit? 5 minutes? Okay. I think whenever I ask this question, I'm always told 5 minutes. So there are a couple of other things I wanted to talk to you about, but I will cut it short by just saying that if you had to take 2 things away from this talk, it would be these 2 things. That as you think about your own leadership, don't get too hassled about all these attributes that people keep throwing at you. You have to be a visionary, you have to be a strategic thinker, you have to motivate people, you have to be a nice guy, you have to be a great problem solver. You can't be all these people. It is humanly not possible. It may be easier to be a superhero and do a James Bond film than to do this, right? But if you were to just say, okay, I have to do something way and beyond what is expected of me, what is expected of this role, what somebody else would have done, then it becomes an easier thing to actually attack. You may do it in your own way. Other people may not approve of your way. You'll know if they don't. But I think it's an easier problem to solve than to say I need to be these 30 people. But the second thing I'm saying is, if you are doing that, just make sure that in that process, you also inspire some people to become your followers. Now, how do you do that? You do that, again, there could be 20 ways. People will say you motivate them, you create incentives, you give them feedback, you be nice to them. But the simple way to think about for me has been, how do I make these people successful? And again, each of you will have your own way of doing it. Nobody can tell you, you can do it this way. You know how to do it because other people have done it with you. Focus on personal growth. The reason I mention this is because it's important. I think when I started first searching to become a better leader, I thought it was going to come from my learning about others. I thought if I read a lot of books, if I went to good talks, if I went to good executive education programs, I would learn how to become a better leader, and then I would become a better leader. But I found that it was not helpful. What was really helpful is first focusing on myself and asking myself the question, what are the things that matter to me? What are the things that I am good at? What are the things that I'm not good at? And how do I change those things? So we'll talk more about that next year because I've given you enough to chew on. But this is not just about some shallow self-development, self-growth, self-realization point. It is truly taking charge of your own leadership and saying, what will it take against these 2 dimensions, right? Of delivering breakthrough performance or becoming or creating great followership. What is getting in the way today? Most of the time we blame it on the environment. We say our company is not very good about this, they don't recognize us, my boss is not very good about this, they don't realize it, my team is all, several levels below me, they don't understand, I'm too good for them. Right? We are always externalizing the fact that we are not able to develop as better leaders, when the fact is that it all depends on you and how well. Let me take a few questions at this point and before I end. Everybody is spellbound. Yes, sir.
Is it the fact that it's a preparedness and readiness to expect the unexpected?
I'm sorry?
Preparedness and
Yeah.
To expect the unexpected?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've thought about that a little bit. I mean, how do you do that?
Because whatever we talked about, the changes or demonstration.
Yeah, so
what is going to that breakthrough?
So the way you prepare is to actually proactively look for it, rather than wait for it to happen. So you can say that, I'm prepared, I'm ready, I've made myself resilient, throw me anything and I'll take care of it. I'm saying don't do that, because frankly then nothing will happen to you. If you want something to happen to you, you have to go make it happen. And we are not discussing some broad life's philosophy here. We are discussing company and corporate environment. I think if you are in the corporate environment saying, I'll wait and then, I'm all ready, we'll wait for something to happen. When that something happens, I will show my leadership. Right? I think that's a good strategy. I'm not, obviously there's nothing wrong with that strategy. But it's a little bit like saying is like you're playing for draw, right? Rather than playing to win. If you remember the Australian cricket example, and Harsha Bogle talks about this in his analysis, and Ricky Ponting's record is there, they would always aggressively go for the opportunity to win, knowing full well that they may fail, right? So it's that difference. So be prepared, but be prepared proactively to search for those opportunities to fail, is the way I would put it. Yes. Yes.
I'd like to share something. In one of our businesses,
Yeah, please use them.
an observation in one of our businesses where we had a CEO who was building a team. He was encouraging people to do things, and the team was pretty happy with him. They were all delivering, but the organization wasn't doing too well.
Right.
They shunted out the guy, gotten a more flamboyant guy who was able to strike a lot of deals, and therefore turn the business around. But the team under him started disintegrating. Now, the second guy is seen as a leader, whereas the first guy was not. So I was wondering, what would your opinion on this be?
You
the
tell
second
me,
guy delivered.
I've forgotten your name now. Sanjay, yes. Sanjay, we've met before. But Sanjay, that is the point I was making first and foremost. That unfortunately in the world that we live in, people first care about results. Okay? And I think we can be nice about it and say that that is not fair, right? After all, look, his whole team left. How can you call him a leader? But unfortunately in the world that we live in, first and foremost, performance counts. Then people look at anything else. So in the first case, he was a good guy, nice guy, consensus guy, got good people, inspired everybody, but if he didn't deliver results, he was gone. And this is not about whether one thing is nice or not. It is not about what is right or wrong. All I'm saying is, in the world we live in, and the fact is in the corporate business environment, there is a premium on performance. I would go so far as to extend that even outside the corporate environment, there is a premium on performance. As in, I gave you the example of sports, where we have been very harsh on Sachin Tendulkar for all his fantastic achievement. I mean, the guy's achievements are extraordinary. But to have a room full of people sitting here who all we know, who are like us, say, no, Dhoni is clearly a better leader, shows you that. And we don't even know how he is with his teams, right? We don't know how he is with the younger people. Maybe Dhoni has become arrogant. Maybe he was too subservient to Sachin. Maybe he didn't have, but the fact is we are saying, nahin, performance hai, leader. So unfortunately the world is like that. Now, I am only saying that I have generally found that you cannot operate only on that principle. Because somewhere the second guy will trip up. Somewhere the second guy will trip up, because if you keep doing this, you get the reputation of being a slave driver, you get the reputation of a people killer, nobody wants to work for you anymore, nobody wants to respect you anymore, and you become a asshole CEO. You'll still become a CEO, you'll still become a great guy, but people will say, I don't respect this guy, I don't think he's a great guy. So that's a personal choice people make. Some people are happy in that. They say, to hell with what other people think, I deliver results, I'm great.
Sustain results.
Sorry?
Sustain results.
Yeah. I think that point is also true. I personally find that we didn't touch on this. Success in one situation does not mean that you will be successful in the same situation if it is presented to you again. and I didn't talk about this, maybe we'll talk more about this, is that leadership is very context-based. We think we made it happen. Yes, we made it happen, but a lot of things around us made it happen. And we somehow make the wrong causal relationship. There is correlation, but the causality is not there. It's not that it just happened because of you making it happen. Yes, sir?
Are we saying that while we get established as a leader by the virtue of our performance,
Yes.
the sustenance will depend on our attributes? I think, because to have majority of the attributes that we spoke about, then I think that sustenance.
Yes. So the attributes help the sustenance. You're absolutely right. And you don't need to have all 30 attributes. Even if you have 5 of those attributes.
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, if you have some of, and in fact, you would have had to have some of them for the result to happen in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah. All I'm saying is you don't need all 30. Problem is if you ask somebody, they will tell you have to be these 30 things. Then you say, oh my God, I can't do this. Okay.
So
Yeah.
just
Sorry? Of course they do. That's what I'm saying. I think if you cannot be a leader without having followers. But the question is, how do you? Oh, failures. I'm so sorry. No, you have many failures. In fact, the more failures you have, the more likely you are to succeed. Seriously, I mean, I look at my life, every time I have been very successful, then I start saying, I need to do something different, you know, I'm getting tired of this, bored of this, I need to start a company, I need to do this, and I take a decision and it turns out to be a bad decision. Example, but the fact is when you become proactive in your search for the opportunity, as I'm encouraging you to do, the fact is that you will only be 50% successful. I find that in fact in my company, most decision I take, 80% of the time I'm wrong. 80% of the time I'm wrong. When people ask me, what have you learned as an entrepreneur? You know, as a consultant, I had a great life. As a consultant, I used to say, I am 100% right. Here's my advice. If you do this, this will happen. If it didn't happen, it's because you didn't do it. I was right. And it's a very nice life to have. You believe that you live in a 100% certain world. Now my world has completely changed. I am only right 20% of the time. 80% of the time I'm trying to make up for the time I was wrong. Because my judgment is wrong, my judgment of an opportunity is wrong, a judgment of a person is wrong. It is always somewhere off. Yes?
This is one of the important attributes, the capability to get up, dust yourself and move
Correct.
ahead, regardless
Correct.
of pain.
Correct. In fact, I just saw on Twitter today a quote from somebody which says that when you are down, just keep going.
Get up
You
and
know,
keep going.
yeah. So,
I have a small question. Sorry,
Yes, sir.
Joined in late, but very basic question: Why do we need leaders?
Why do we need leaders? A good question. Have you heard of VUCA?
VUCA, no.
No? VUCA? So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. This has become a business term these days. I think good question. We don't need leaders. If you want to be pure about it, we don't need leaders. We need people who can deal with VUCA environments, and that's what we have started to label as leadership. What has happened is, business is not a very old profession in the way we practice it. This whole thing about being a part of a corporation, global, selling a product, dealing with customers, yes, it is very old, but the model we are in was born in the early part of the 20th century, where we started assembly lines making cars and then putting in steel plants. So the whole theory of management at that time was, I will define your role, I will give you KRAs, I will tell you what you have to do, you come to work at 9 o'clock, you leave at 5 o'clock, after that I'll give you enough money that you can be happy with your family. Right? And all the theories, including Michael Porter's famous strategy theory, and by the way, you probably know that his firm Monitor has collapsed, which was built on his strategic framework, because they keep giving strategic advice, but strategies don't work anymore. So what has happened is, the whole world has changed to a point where that model doesn't work anymore. Today, I hire a manager, I don't do any induction or orientation, I give the person a problem and I say, you please go solve it. So the world has changed to a point where it has become very volatile. Things keep changing all the time, particularly for you all here as CISOs. It's very uncertain. So volatility is one thing. What will happen next is uncertain. It's become very complex, too many things involved, too many things tied up with each other, and it has become ambiguous. You don't have, when I tell them to solve a problem, I don't even know what the problem is sometimes.
So two sides. So what
Yeah.
you're saying is that we do not require leaders, or if we require leaders, then two sides. So if I'm looking at a leader,
Yeah.
then I should be able to assume that this leader will be able to address my uncertain situations, scenarios, or needs, right? As a leader, I'll have to assume that I should be able to resolve.
Yes,
for the
so
people
let me just finish my thought. So all I'm saying is that companies today need people who can deal with VUCA environments rather than that industrial environment that we had been earlier exposed to. And we have chosen to call that person, that animal, that person as opposed to a manager. We found the best definition in calling them a leader. That's why we talk about leadership so much. So you can call it something else. You can call it captain, you can call it XYZ, you can give it any name, you can call it penguin, right? But the animal we are talking about, or the person we are talking about, has to deal with these VUCA environments, and that's why we have caught on to this leadership point. So the notion of business adopting this term is really to solve this problem. If you think about it in Hindi, we don't have a word for leader. What is the word for leader in Hindi? Huh? Neta. And neta means what? We don't need politicians in our company. Thank God we don't have them, right? So it's really, we've just borrowed this term. That's how I see it. And everything I'm talking about does apply to leadership, but it really applies to this animal that we now need in companies. I mean, you need that to manage your security environment in the company.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll be around during the day so we can have more conversations about this, but thank you for paying attention.